2008, a hero was born. In the multicultural hub of Malaysia, we saw a future king of cricket lead his side to under-19 World Cup glory. I am of course talking about King Kohli. Now with the Indian superstar playing out his final years in the cricketing world already, the eyes are out, they are looking, they are searching for the successor to his throne. A name that has been popping up a lot recently in the past few years, Shubman Gill, already dubbed as the Prince of Indian cricket. Now, is Gill the next Virat Kohli? Is he the next king? I think this can either be seen as a blessing, an almost godlike blessing, or it can be a burden the size of a mountain. Let's find out. And Gill did. For a while at least. I mean, he top scored in the 2023 Asia Cup, 302 runs in 6 matches with an average of 75.5. That's incredible. Okay, but it's also important here to note that Shubman, also in 2023, he had a freak-like IPL. We're talking 890 runs, okay, average of 59, strike rate of 158, 450s and 300s in 17 innings. Will you ever in your life see a better IPL season than that? Well, of course, one person bettered that. In 2016, it was the king himself. He made 973 runs, the closest ever. I mean, can you imagine 1,000 runs in an IPL? Average of 81, strike rate of 152, 750s and 400s, and he did it in 1 less innings. Is it really a good idea to want to compare yourself to that for the rest of your cricketing career? I mean, yes, of course others are going to do it. They have to do it. It's newsworthy. But should you? So in the World Cup 2023, Gill didn't play the first match against Australia. But however, it's important to note that the king featured heavily. Him and KL brought the victory with their bats. KL making 97 not out and the king making a solid 85. India beat Afghanistan. Kohli made 55. Rohit made 131. Again, Gill didn't play. Against Pakistan, Gill played. Him and Kohli both made a measly 16. Rohit made 86 and Shreyas Iyer made a 53. Against Bangladesh, however, Gill did play again. He made a 53, but again, Kohli made 103. All very casual at this point, right? Let's call it Kohli casual. But then came the King's masterclass in Dharamshala. New Zealand was the first team to kind of have India in a bit of a pickle. It was a tough pitch. Daryl Mitchell played an absolute blinder, although some criticised the way that he got to his 100, right? The duration it took to get to his ton. It was a turning point for sure, but the real turning point was the breathtaking innings by the king. He paced the chase to perfection. In a match where India felt pressure for the first time, Gill fell into an easy trap, hitting it straight into third man's throat. When the team was in a very strong position actually, and he's done that quite a few times, 76 for 1 after 13 overs, he threw his wicket away. Another great example was a match against my own team. Okay, yes, India won by 243 runs, but that partnership between Shreyas Iyer and Virat Kohli, the pressure that they had to soak up. You know, if you go and watch that match, and I do remember it well, Hitman had a massive onslaught. South Africa really, the spinners started piling on the pressure. It was one of the best spinning performances I saw from my own team. Gill fell cheaply again. But then came the king and Shreyas. You know, Shreyas, I think at some point, I don't have the exact stats, but he was 19 or 41. But I think at some point his strike rate was like 15. Kohli, 41 from 54. I think his strike rate was also much lower. Eventually scoring 101 from 121 balls, playing an absolute king's innings when it mattered most. In the semis, Gill made his first true contribution against the formidable, Kiwi side, Black Caps, 80. But of course, again, he was outscored by Virat, 117. Virat and Shreyas, my apologies, 117 and 105. Then there was the final. the softest of softest dismissals. You know, when we look at the contributions from the top 5, let's even say the top 6 batters in that tournament of India, I mean, Gill is by far at the bottom. You know, not just that match in the final, but the entire tournament. Blistering starts from Rohit, clutch innings by Shreyas Iyer and KL, masterclasses by Kohli against, you know, one of the best oppositions, multiple best oppositions in tough conditions. But Gill wants to be king. Kohli made 765 runs that World Cup. He was man of the tournament. Gill played 2 games less, yes, and he made 354. In the T20 World Cup, it's also a very important thing to note, Kohli had a very lean tournament. But when it mattered most, in the final, now a lot of people will say Bumrah won the final, Sky's catch, Hardik's last over, but it was his 76 that was match winning, trophy winning. If you want to be king, you better score runs when it matters most. How an Indian cricket player fares in SENA or against SENA is absolutely career defining. SENA, South Africa, England, New Zealand, Australia. And if we look at the all format stats of Virat and Shubman, well, you know, it's pretty decent. Gill kind of matches up here. He does especially well in New Zealand on the flatter pitches. But when I think SENA, I think Test cricket. I think how India has yet to cross the threshold of winning a Test series in South Africa. I think of the BGT, the biggest Test series probably now in the game of cricket. I think of the upcoming Patauji Trophy in England in a few months' time. And if we look at these stats, this is where the difference is vast and quite astronomical. As we can see here, this is Gill's Test record in SENA, and this is Kohli's Test record in SENA. One would think that if you add the matches played against SENA in India, it would be better, but it is not. Sometimes the stats speak, and here they speak loudly. I mean, it's just not good. You know, looking at his individually, but comparing it to Kohli's, it's a tearful sight. And side note, just to add this little fact in here, in Kohli's first 4 years of Test cricket, he averaged 45.7. Kohli is without a doubt one of the best captains the game has ever seen. And when we think of captains, we usually think of, you know, batting stalwarts of the game. We think Ricky Ponting, we think Graeme Smith. Okay, but captaincy as a batter doesn't always necessarily translate into runs. But for the king, it did. Virat scored 41 centuries across formats as captain, the most by any Indian. His ODI average climbed from an already impressive 50 to a GOAT-level average of 72.65. He took India to the world #1 Test ranking and won a series in England. And now for the big one. In 1947, India played their first Test series against Australia in Australia after their independence. Only in 2019, 71 years later, India finally conquered Australia and they won their first Test series. Who was the captain? The king. Known for his aggressive, passionate, never-say-die captaining approach, the king led them to one of cricket's most iconic moments in history. On top of that, he was the 3rd highest run scorer behind Pujara and Pant. However, Gill's captaining stint, I know it's been short and perhaps it's too soon to judge, but it cannot go unnoticed. In IPL 2023, Gill, like we've already said, had one of the best seasons that you can ever dream of in an IPL, making 890 runs. In 2024, he took over as captain and he made 426 runs. Still a good season, you know, far from what we're used to from him or what we expect, and some people will blame that the team has changed, but the fact of the matter is, he is an opening batter. He will always get first choice, he will always be there, and he will be able to get the entire 20 overs to bat. The average first innings score was 188 in Ahmedabad. Punjab even chased down a 200 at that venue. If we look at this pie chart, I mean the difference in performance, the performance value as captain versus no captain, non-captain, it's quite staggering. When Gill didn't perform in the ODI World Cup of 2023, when he didn't perform like we're used to, like we expected him to perform in 2024 on, I mean, let's face it, pretty damn good pitches, when he wasn't even picked for the T20 World Cup side. Okay, when he failed again in Australia, now recently in the BGT, instead of letting him focus on his batting, you chose to promote him to vice captain. Okay, the moment Gill made it known to the world that he wanted to be the next Virat Kohli was the moment his career took a hit. So I'm asking this question again. Is Gill the next King Kohli? No. There will never be another Jacques Kallis, just like there will never be another Virat Kohli. Why would you want to put the pressures? I mean, we've seen all of the stats. We've seen the performances under pressure. We've seen Kohli dig his team out of holes time and time again. Would you really want the pressures, the mountain of being the next king on your shoulders in a time where you are struggling? He must forge his own path, just like the others have before him. There can never be another King Kohli. There can, however, be a Shubman Gill.